Let us start the 20th session of Secrets of Spirituality. We have been discussing this particular electromagnetic spectrum in the last session, and you can recall that we started from radio frequency. We went on up to discussing up to the gamma rays, and I was mentioning that there are frequencies beyond gamma rays which are called as cosmic rays. And even the scientists are not working on these cosmic rays as such because they're highly dangerous rays as far as human tissues are concerned. If any person gets exposed to cosmic rays, that person himself may disintegrate or may dissolve, because you can see that with this range, when the frequencies are increasing, you can see up to 10 power 20 hertz. If the frequency is increasing, you can think about the intensity of the signal or the radiation which is penetrating into those particles, and then you can as well imagine what will happen to those particles if they are subjected to such higher frequency radiations. So this is called as electromagnetic spectrum. That is because it is having a magnetic property as well as electrical property, and all these frequencies can be modeled using a electromagnetic analysis. Let us think about what all sense organs we have with reference to this electromagnetic spectrum. Naturally, we don't sense the radio waves. We human beings do not have sensory perceptions of radio waves. But it does not mean that all other creatures are also not having these perceptions. For example, I was mentioning that many insects emit some sounds which belong to the ultrasound region. So, when this ultrasound is there, ultrasound, when it is not audible to the human beings, when it is audible to some other creatures, we can also think about whether the radio frequencies are actually perceivable or can they be sensed by other creatures. So this way, if we can imagine that without judging about the human sensory perceptions, or without really thinking only the facts of nature as it is perceivable by the human beings, we can come to a conclusion that consciousness has been evolving sense organs based on some frequency ranges which we call as tanmatra. In the philosophical term, we call it as shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. We call them as pancha tanmatra, out of which Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa are basically physically quantifiable signals only. Of course, that frequency of sound is not being discussed in this particular slide. I will be discussing it in the next slide. Now, radio frequencies are not perceivable by the human beings. But it does not mean that whatever is not perceivable by the human beings cannot be pursued by any other creatures at all in nature. Ever since we started using cellular phones, we have these mobile phone towers everywhere now. We gradually evolved from 1G to 2G, 2G to 3G, 3G to 4G, and now we are moving on from 4G to 5G. Everywhere we have 2.4 gigahertz radiation which is penetrating into the space, and everywhere we have these network service providers installing their own radio equipments. But think about it, all the human beings are using this radio spectrum for the purpose of communication. Even this online program is also happening by means of this radio spectrum itself. But what about the other creatures which have been living along with the human beings? So many species of birds have been in harmony with the human beings. Now only human beings are living in the urban areas. and those sensitive beings which can actually perceive the radio frequencies, even they have left the urban dwelling places. And this is a serious threat for the balance of nature, where human beings are only producing these range of frequencies and they are using for their own communication purposes. But ultimately, these frequencies are going to affect the human beings also. It is going to affect the balanced life forms which are there in the nature also. So the conclusion is, just because human being is not able to perceive radio frequencies, it does not mean that there are no other beings who are perceiving radio frequencies. When they get irritated by these radio frequencies, they will simply change their dwelling places elsewhere. So, coming to the microwave range, we are not able to perceive the radio waves, but we are able to perceive the microwave range, because microwave range and infrared range, especially the infrared range, is relating to the tanmatra of sparsha, which means infrared range is basically below the red, which is basically belonging to the heat range or thermal range. So by means of this particular perception, we can sense whether something is hot or cold or warm, in whichever way. That means the sense of touch is possible using infrared frequency range. And as such, visible frequency range is utilized for our sense of sight. So we can conclude that the sense of sound and the sense of touch and the sense of vision are three frequency ranges. Whereas, as I had mentioned earlier, the sense of smell and the sense of taste, these two are basically physical and then chemical and then biological and then electrical. But as far as sense of sound and sense of touch and sense of vision is concerned, these three are physical then electrical. Means when the sensory organs perceive these frequencies, immediately the electrical signals will be sent to the brain and the brain will decipher the sensory perceptions. So we can say that in this electromagnetic spectrum's frequency range, we have right now in this particular slide, whatever we are discussing, we have two sense organs. That is sense of touch and sense of vision. For the radio signal, we don't have a sensory perception. For the microwave, we don't have a sensory perception. And we cannot have a sensory perception beyond ultraviolet, X-ray and gamma ray, because the frequencies are really very large, very high frequency. And these high frequencies, if they cross a certain threshold or amplitude, they are going to be causing a lot of harm to the human tissues as well. So as such, we cannot say that in the ultraviolet range and in the X-ray range and in the X-ray range and in the gamma ray range, even in future also, whether nature will evolve the sense organs or not. But sense organs may be possible in the microwave range, may be possible in the radio wave range in future, if at all a sixth sense is going to be evolved. That was what I was mentioning. There is actually no sixth sense right now in nature. If nature wants to evolve the sixth sense, it may be in these frequencies right now where human beings are not having those sensory perceptions. Maybe the radio waves, maybe the microwave range. Because in the infrared range, we already have a sense of touch. In the visible range, we already have a sense of vision. And in the ultraviolet and X-ray and gamma ray range, we cannot have such sensory perceptions, because the frequency is really much larger. So that was the reason I thought of discussing the electromagnetic spectrum here now, just to understand the relationship between physics and our sense organs. Now, should we go towards the right side or should we go towards the left side is the question now. Should we go beyond gamma ray or should we go before radio waves is the question now. The answer is, there is no point in we going beyond gamma rays, because they are highly potential threat to life itself. The frequencies which are beyond 10 power 20 hertz are basically highly dangerous frequencies. That is why ozone layer has been protecting life on Earth. So naturally, the sun's high frequencies are not reaching the Earth's atmosphere because of the ozone layer. The cosmic rays which are there already in the space beyond the ozone layer is not affecting the life on Earth. So we should thank God that He put ozone layer there so that life is protected on the surface of Earth. So now the next option is we have to go before the radio waves. So let us go before the radio waves and let us discuss what is there before that 10 power 4 hertz. And we already know in between 10 power 12 and 10 power 15 hertz, we have this visible light spectrum, and red is there in the beginning and violet is there at the end. In between them, we have these 7 colors which we can easily distinguish, and the combinations of these colors are going to yield to so many other compound or complex colors later on. So it's a very small range of frequencies which is coming to the visible spectrum. Now there was a question in the last session that everywhere we have been discussing that God is light and God is light. Now the answer is, why we discuss God as light is, God can see without any light. God himself is that particular invisible light, we can say. Whereas our eyes are working in this range only. Our eyes are working in the visible frequency spectrum. So eyes are designed to sense this particular frequency of around 10 power 15 hertz. Whereas skin is designed to sense this particular frequency around 10 power 12 hertz. But we don't have any sense organs in the microwave range and in the radio wave range, as I have been mentioning. So if at all they say whether God is light, then I should mention that God is invisible light, God is silent sound. Because God can see without eyes, God can hear without ears. In fact, God is the one who developed the sensory perceptions in the bodies, in the living bodies. So sensory perceptions are an outcome of the God's intention. As such, God is beyond the sensory perceptions. So why they mention God as light? The reason is, as God can see the universe, or God can perceive the universe, as God is omnipresent, we can say God is light. But God is not this particular light which the sun is emitting. God is not that particular light which stars are emitting. Those are the lights which are the outcome of burning, right? All stars are basically burning. They are all fire as such. So we cannot say God is fire, or we cannot say God is seeing by something burning. But we still simply say God is light. Why? Because we see things through light. God sees things as his own radiance or its own radiance. That is why Adi Shankara says, Jyoti Jyoti Swayam Jyotiratma Jyoti Shivosmyaham, which means I am the self-effulgent light. That is one way of telling metaphorically about my divine nature. For that reason only, everywhere people have been calling God as light. But actually, God is not energy as well, right? When God is not energy, energy is an outcome of God's intention. Energy comes into place because of God's intention and vibration throughout the universe. Now, we cannot say God is vibration. We cannot say God is energy. God is the cause of vibration. God is the cause of energy. That is why energy is called as Shakti. God is called as Shiva. Energy is called as Adi Shakti. God is called as Parabrahman. In whichever terminology you use. When God is the cause for everything else in the universe, again we cannot say God is light. But still we will say God is light only for using a metaphorical language. Okay. It is for the normal people to understand that God can see that way. Then we should say God is light. Only for that purpose it is being mentioned. So I should say that God is invisible light, God is silent sound, both. Now let us go to the frequency spectrum, which is below this 10 power 4 hertz, and let us see what all is there for us to explore. Now look at this slide. Over 20,000 hertz is called as ultrasound. 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz is called as audio frequency range, which human beings can perceive. Whereas above 20 kilohertz, bats can perceive. There are other creatures also which can perceive this ultrasound. As I had mentioned, whales, dolphins, even cats and dogs can perceive ultrasound. Now, there are frequencies below 20 hertz also which elephants can perceive. In fact, the vocal cord of elephants is much thicker, and the vocal cord of human beings is somewhat medium, and the vocal cords of bats is still thinner. Whichever is a very thin vocal cord, that can vibrate at a larger frequency. As such, in nature, the frequency and the size are inversely proportional. Let us say in a veena or in a guitar or in a sitar, there are strings. The thicker strings will vibrate at a lesser frequency. Thinner strings will vibrate at a larger frequency. Similarly, in the case of bats, the vocal cords are thinner. In the case of elephants, the vocal cords are thicker. So, elephants can produce sounds which are below 20 hertz also, and the same sound elephants can hear also. So, if bats use ultrasound for communication, elephants use infrasound for communication. If a mother elephant is calling her children, we may not be able to hear that sound. Now, if a bat is communicating through ultrasound, we are also unable to hear that particular sound, because our frequency range for audibility is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So, mother elephant can use a frequency which is below 20 hertz. Still, mother elephant and the other elephants may be communicating through sounds only, which we are unable to hear. So, human beings should understand that even our sense organs have their own limitations, and it does not mean that whatever is not there as our sensory perception is not there in nature. We should not come to such conclusion. Even our sensory abilities or our own bodily experiences are limited. That way we should understand that we are part of nature as such. Nature is having many other frequencies in its content delivery or in its communication abilities. So, when we come down from radio frequency, we can see that right from 0 hertz till 20 kilohertz, it is called as sound. Now, from 0 hertz, let us proceed further. We have the sensory ability between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. That means our ears are designed for this particular frequency range, above which for ultrasound we don't have sensory abilities. For radio waves, we don't have sensory abilities. For microwave, we don't have sensory abilities. But for infrared, we have the sense of touch. And for visible light, we have the sense of vision. That means our sense of hearing, sense of touch, and sense of vision are the three physical sensory perceptions out of this complete frequency range. Of course, I cannot discuss this sense of taste and sense of smell here, as I have mentioned you. They are basically chemical in nature. But otherwise, in the complete electromagnetic spectrum, right from 0 till infinity, we should say we have only 3 sense organs now based on these frequencies. Now, there are yogis who can hear sounds beyond this particular ultrasound, and there are yogis who can see the frequency range which is not in the threshold of the visibility also. There are people who can see ghosts. When people can see ghosts, which means that the ghosts' astral bodies are not visible to the normal human vision, because the ghost astral body is going to reflect a light in a much lesser intensity. But if there are spiritual masters who have intense abilities of vision, they can see ghosts also, they can see angels also, they can see the spiritual masters who are there in the subtle bodies as well. That is possible. One more thing is, as far as sense of sound is concerned, if they can hear the sound which is beyond the normal hearing range, they can understand nature in much better way. So those are called yoga siddhis. Anima, Mahima, Garima, Laghima, Prapti, Prakamya, Ishatva, Vashitva. These 7 are called yoga siddhis. Okay. Anima means smallest. Anima Mahima means biggest. Garima means heaviest. Laghima means lightest. Anima Mahima Garima Laghima. Prapti means accomplishing. Prakamya means whatever is wished for is being accomplished. Ishatva means becoming a lord for everything. Vashitva means controlling everything. All these 8 siddhis are already there with God, with the divine consciousness. But when any person is in tune with God, any person is in connection with God, even with that particular person, these 8 spiritual powers can be manifested. That is when people understand nature in a much better way. Okay. So, what if we develop an ability to hear sound below 20 Hz, then we will be able to hear the sound of the elephant as well. If we are able to hear a sound which is over 20,000 Hz, then we are able to sense the sound of bats as well. That is one thing. Okay, now I started that. Let us go from 0 till infinity. From 0 till infinity, we normally have only 3 physical senses now. But what is that at 0? Let us discuss that. What is there at 0? Let us discuss that. There is a question here. What is the frequency of inner voice of human being? What is the meaning of inner voice? There is nothing called inner voice. It is only thought. Voice is always emanating from the vibration of the vocal cords. So voice is always outer. There is nothing called inner voice. Whatever you call it as inner voice is your own conscience. That is your own mental perceptions or your own intellectual abilities. Or I should say, it is your manasakshi. The one which says what is right and what is wrong out of your own intellectual abilities or out of your own intuitional abilities. Otherwise, there is nothing called inner voice. That inner voice is again a allegorical term or a metaphoric term. So let us go further to explore about sound and the frequencies below sound. Waveforms before the sound. Now we have been coming from 20 Hz below. You can see here, these particular waves are part of a spectrum called EEG, electroencephalogram. Right now, you are listening to this particular session. So right now, your brain is working in a frequency of 12 to 32 Hz. That is called beta waves. If at all you are under anxiety or tension or hypertension or angry, then your brain will be working at a much higher frequencies, and the brain may be working from 32 to 70 hertz. That is called gamma waves. If your brain keeps on working at gamma waves, then gradually brain will lose its health. You can observe that whenever you have a headache, you can likely hear a sound in your ear. Sometimes when your health is not really very good, you may be able to hear some strange sounds in your ear. Actually, those sounds are produced by the excessive working of the brain itself. Even the brain requires enough rest, brain requires enough reconstruction within itself. If that does not happen, let us say you are restless, you are not sleeping properly, or you are not taking care of your health properly. You are always a victim of your arrogance or anger or shouting in whichever way. Or you may be under your own tension or anxiety or pressure due to many reasons. Maybe due to your own reasons, maybe due to some other reasons. Now, if those situations continue, your brain will be overworking, and if the brain overworks, then it will produce these gamma waves, which is not a good sign. So, if at all you go to a regular medical doctor, he will give you some sedatives so that sleep will be induced and brain will reduce its functionality. But that is also not a good way of therapy, because you may get addicted to that particular sedatives. So what is the solution? Solution is reduce your thoughts, reduce your 6 enemies, reduce your 8 arrogances, gain control over yourselves, and let the brain work very well with good functionality. Don't become angry for each and every small reason. Don't show your temper on people for each and every small reason. Don't think that you will be controlling everybody always. When you are unable to control yourself, how do you think that you can control others? That's the problem with the people. Everybody wants to control others. They don't want to control themselves. When person himself is out of his own control, or herself is out of her own control, how do they assume that they can control others always? So when they are unable to control others, they will be always under anger or exhibiting their authority. They will also be under pressure, and they want people also to be under pressure. And all this is going to affect the health of the brain. So if the brain is producing gamma waves, that is not a good sign. Right now you are in the awakened state. Now your brain is producing beta waves. Your sensory organs are working. Now when you go into a dreaming state, your brain is going to work between 8 to 12 hertz. That is called alpha waves. When you go into a dreaming state also, thoughts are going to be reduced. Sensory organs are not working. Only the brain is working along with the mind. So at that time, it is emanating alpha waves. The same thing will happen when you close your eyes and when you start practicing the initial methods of meditation, like concentrating within and disconnecting yourself from your sense organs. And that is when brain will reduce its activity. Gradually it will go on to produce alpha waves. That is why alpha waves are also called as relaxation waves, where it is proved medically that if the brain keeps on producing alpha waves, then the brain can replenish itself, it can repair itself. Now, in the awakened state, your brain is producing beta waves. In the dreaming state, your brain is producing alpha waves. In the sleeping state, your brain is producing theta waves. The reason is your body is at rest, your mind is at rest, and you are actually no more there when you are deeply sleeping. Your memory is not working, your ego is not working, your intellect is not working, your mind is not working. So body is at rest, mind is at rest. So that is when brain is completely performing its autonomous functions of secreting the hormones through the endocrine system. And at that time, the brain is going to produce something called theta waves, where the frequency is only 4 to 8 hertz. So in our regular lifestyle, we keep on moving between theta, alpha and beta. Sleeping state, dreaming state, awakened state. Again, awakened state, dreaming state, sleeping state. So we keep on moving between these three states. Now, if you start practicing yoga, asana and pranayama is happening in beta state, pratyahara dharana is happening in alpha state, and dhyana is going to happen in theta state. Dhyana is going to happen in theta as well as delta state. I'm going to talk about delta state slightly later. So, asana, pranayama in beta state, pratyahara, dharana in alpha state. Dhyana is going to happen in theta state also. Dhyana can happen in delta state also. And those who practice yoga abhyasa, they are not supposed to go to this gamma state at all. That is why yama and niyama are there. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. They are called yama. Shaucha, santosha, tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara, pranidhana. They are called niyama. They are basically there to prevent you to get into the gamma state. So, in the awakened state, it is beta. In the dreaming state, it is alpha. In the sleeping state, it is theta. Similarly, during asana and pranayama, it is beta. During pratyahara and dharana, it is alpha. During dhyana, it is theta and delta. Now, let me discuss this delta state. In the medical term, the delta state is referred as coma state. Now, when the brain is working between 1 Hz to 4 Hz, even the medical doctor is not sure whether the brain will come back to theta state, alpha state and beta state or not. Because theta state itself is the autonomous functionality of the brain, where the body is not working, where the mind is not working, only the self or the soul is working, maintaining the body. Now, when the brain is emanating delta waves, it means that we don't know whether the person will wake up or not, because it has gone into a state where it is deciding whether life should be there or life should not be there. So in the medical terms, they call it as delta state. But in the yogic terms, when a person goes into theta state, gradually if a person can go into delta state out of the person's own practice of meditation, then the state of delta is called as savikalpa samadhi. Savikalpa samadhi, in the sense the person is very near to death, but the person is not dead. The person is not in coma also. Coma will occur when the health is upset, whereas savikalpa samadhi will occur only when the health is intact. Savikalpa samadhi can never occur when the health is upset. If at all when your health is upset, you start practicing meditation, you will always get sleep only, because body's priority is health. So, body wants to survive at any cost. Until aging happens, until physical death happens, body wants to survive. So, in that case, if you are not keeping a very good health, if you start practicing meditation, you will always get into sleep only. You will never get into savikalpa samadhi. That is why I repeat the sentence, Patanjali is the greatest scientist on this earth. He gave yama niyama in the beginning, then he gave asana pranayama, then he gave pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, only to achieve samadhi. So that you will attain physical health through asana pranayama, you will attain mental health by means of pratyahara, dharana, gradually you will develop spiritual health by means of dhyana and samadhi, for which you should have a social health. That social health is possible by means of practicing yama and niyama. Initially, you should have a social health. You should be a socially healthy human being. Then you can have a physical health, you can have a mental health, you can aspire for a spiritual health. So the person who is achieving the state of savikalpa samadhi and later on nirvikalpa samadhi will be called as a real yogi or avadhuta or a rishi in yogic terms. Now, if you ask me, sir, whether people have gone to that state, then I should ask you the questions again. Have you remembered whatever life account I spoke about Sadashiva Brahmendra? There was also one more great yogi called Avadhuta Nityananda, who was living in the state of Kerala in a place called Kanjangad, and he lived there for many years. Gradually, he left Kanjangad and he walked barefoot all through the coastal area. Finally, he left his body at a place called Ganeshpuri near to Mumbai. So he completely went by walk all the way, and he was wearing only a loin cloth in his body. He was a great Avadhuta. He used to carve a cave in a hill through his own hands, and he used to sit inside that particular cave for days together and months together. That particular holy place is still maintained very beautifully, and it is called as Guruvanam. If at all you go to Kanjangad, definitely visit this particular place called Guruvanam, where Avadhuta Nityananda had meditated for many years. And he also made many caves ready in the town of Kanjangad near, where a hill, inside the hill, he appointed laborers to carve out the caves. You can check for Nityananda Ashrama there in Kanjangad town. You can visit there also. There you will see this particular hill. Inside the hillock, you will see many caves carved. That was done by this Avadhuta Nityananda only. He wanted that people should come into these caves and they should also meditate. That was his intention. But we hardly see people going there and meditating. When we went there, we sat there and we tried to meditate for some time. But we could not meditate for much longer because of the people keep coming and going there. Okay, that is the disturbance happening there. But that particular Avadhuta Nityananda was in Savikalpa Samadhi. Maybe he was there in Nirvikalpa Samadhi also. We don't know. So don't ask me questions that whether people have gone to that state. Why do I mention the life of Sadashiva Brahmendra? Why do I mention the life of Mantralayas Raghavendra? Why did I mention the life of Avadhuta Nityananda? There are so many. I am mentioning only a few names, but there are so many. Almost all of the rishis who have written Upanishads, they have gone to this delta state at least. When they go to the delta state, when we get into Savikalpa Samadhi, then they come back into theta state, alpha state, beta state, and in the beta state, they compose all those Upanishads. Why? For that matter, even Prophet Muhammad, even Jesus Christ, even Moses, even Guru Nanak, even Kabir, even Socrates, even Gautama Buddha, even Mahavira Vardhamana Tirthankara, even Lao Tzu, they have all gone to at least delta state. Then from the delta state, when they come back with the spiritual realization. Because delta state, even though in the medical term it is called as coma, in the yogic parlance, this is called as Savikalpa Samadhi. You already know the meaning of the word Samadhi, Sam-a-adhi. And you already know, the Kannada people already know what Mukundur Swami told about Samadhi. Satmele antadri Samadhi, badkirಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ Samadhi ಆಗಬೇಕು. That is what Mukundur Swami told humorously. So, Ashtanga Yoga is basically going from beta to alpha, alpha to theta, theta to delta state. That is the challenge. How can you calm your sense organs? How can you reduce your thoughts? How can you nullify your ego itself? And how can you completely become blank? Once you become blank, he will fill you. I'll tell you a small story. One professor went to a Zen master, and professor went with a lot of ego about his own knowledge or his position, and he went to a Zen master and he told the Zen master that I have come to discuss spiritual things with you. I think that you know a lot about spiritual things. I also know something about it, and I want to have a discussion with you. Now in Japan, there is a custom that whenever a guest comes, they will pour tea over a cup and they will offer that particular tea to the guest. Now the Zen master picked up one particular cup and he asked the professor to hold it. When the professor was holding the cup, the Zen master started pouring tea into the cup, and gradually the teacup filled and the tea was overflowing. When the tea was overflowing, the professor said, "Tea is overflowing, you are pouring more." Then the Zen master said, "Yes, that is exactly what has happened. It is overflowing, you will have to empty it." He mentioned it not to the tea, he mentioned it to the professor that you are overflowing, you empty yourself, then I will fill. It is the same case with meditation. With meditation, when you become empty, he will fill you. That is the whole and sole purpose of practicing yoga, nothing else. All other benefits of practicing yoga are all side benefits. The whole and sole purpose of practicing yoga is to gradually get in contact with the divinity itself. The fish has to have a contact with water itself. Until then, the fish is ignorant about water. So, in the process of yoga, if at all you get into delta state, then you are a true yogi. It is not necessary that you will have to go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the state of zero. No frequency at all. Let me discuss about it slightly later. But at least each one of you can sincerely try to at least come till the state of delta. Provided you will have to reduce your thoughts, you will have to nullify your ego, you have to cleanse your mind, you have to conquer the 6 enemies, you have to conquer the 8 arrogances, you will have to try to become clean and pure and empty. Only then you will be filled by him. Until the fish cleanses itself, fish will never have a contact with the water. As long as the fish remains dirty, it can never have a contact with the water, even though water is there, omnipresent, inside and outside the fish. Fish is unable to perceive water itself, because fish is stuck in beta state only, right? So as human beings, if we are stuck only in these beta, alpha and theta states, awakened state, dreaming state, sleeping state, again awakened state, dreaming state, sleeping state, day in and day out we are only in these 3 states. And even though we are in these 3 states, we have still not understood what is the dreaming state. We have still not understood what is the sleeping state. We think that sleeping state is only a resting state. But sleeping state is a resting state for the hardware and the software. Sleeping state is a resting state for the body and the mind, not to the self, not to the spirit. Spirit is beyond all 3 states. Self is beyond all 3 states. That is when Adi Shankara told about Samadhi in the Yoga Taravali. What he told? Na jagaro napi sushupti bhavo, na jivitam no maranam vichitram, na jagaraha na apitu sushupti bhavaha. No beta state, no awakened state, no sleeping state, not even theta state. Na jivitam, not living also. Na maranam, not dead also. Vichitram, that he mentioned to the delta state itself. When a person is coma, you don't know whether he is alive. You are not sure. Whether he is dead, no, that also you are not sure. Doctor is not declaring a person in coma as a living or dead. It is in between. And the medical doctor will say, it may come to this side also, it may go to that side also. Now when the person is in this delta state, easy living, we can't say. Easy dead, we can't say. He is not dead because the body is still warm. Easy living, no, because breathing has stopped. Breathing has stopped, body is warm. Why? Breathing has stopped because body has got enough prana there. Body has got enough energy there. But body is still warm because of prana. Breathing has stopped. Why? Person is not doing anything else. So there is no need of producing more prana now. How energy is produced in the body? By means of metabolism, right? By means of food and by means of breathing. Now when there is enough energy in the body, there is no need to supply more energy to the body. That is when breathing stops, because person has stopped doing all other things which was happening in beta state and alpha state. Now that is the great state of Savikalpa Samadhi. If at all someone reaches into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, then that is still greater. Again recall the life account which I spoke about Sadashiva Brahmendra. He used to get into Nirvikalpa Samadhi so many times during his lifetime. But I cannot say other people have gone into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The reason is, people who go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, they may not come back as normal people later on. They will not live like normal people later on. Just like Sadashiva Brahmendra. When he went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, afterwards when he came out, he never lived like normal other human beings. He did not wear any clothes. He did not stay in one place. He did not write any books afterwards. He did not compose any poems afterwards. It was all composed before that. Even Sadashiva Brahmendra had written a commentary on Yoga Sutras, but it was before he went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. After the person comes out of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he is an embodiment of consciousness. Why? Because the 0 hertz itself is God. Nirvikalpa Samadhi itself is the godly state. The state of Shiva. The state of complete, static, pure, spiritual, divine existence. Just look at this picture. From the state of 0, when the frequency is 0, afterwards when the frequencies are emanating, it is the vibration increasing its frequency. Then we say, from 0 to 1 when it is happening, we say energy is coming out, vibration is happening. Then we call it as Shakti. So this sound was between 20 to 20 kilohertz. These frequencies are below 20. Just look at these. These are all the frequencies which are part of the brain's functionality. That is why they are called EEG, electroencephalogram. That means these frequencies are before the sound, which means mind is working in these particular frequencies from 0 to 32 hertz to be healthy. It should not be between 0 to 70 hertz or 100 hertz. It is between 0 to 32 hertz. But in a normal lifestyle, it is only between 4 to 32 hertz. Because we dream, we go to sleep, we come back. Only when we meditate seriously, we are aspiring to go to the state of delta. Only when we want to have real salvation called Jivan Mukti. There are 3 types of salvation. I will not tell about those things right now. I will be telling it in more detail at the end of this presentation, not now. But there are 3 types of salvation called Sadhyo Mukti, Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti. Sadhyo Mukti means right now liberated and free. For example, all trees and plants are right now liberated and free. They don't have brain, they don't have ego. Trees and plants, they don't have their own memory. They don't have their own 4 antakarana called Manas, Chitta, Buddhi and Ahankara. So all the trees and plants are right now liberated. The trees do not have something called yesterday. The trees do not have something called tomorrow. The trees are totally unaware of all these dimensions of time. So trees and plants are Sadhyo Mukta. Right now they are liberated, free. Whereas Jivan Mukta means the one who is in life but he is not bound by life. He or she is liberated and free right now even though they are living. Sadashiva Brahmendra lived like a Jivan Mukta because he went to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, went into the state of 0 hertz, then he came out of that. Whoever comes out of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, they live like as if they don't belong to this human life, human existence at all. That was the case with Vardhamana, who became Mahavira Tirthankara later on. That may be the case with so many other holy spiritual masters who went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when they came out of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, they did not live like normal human beings at all. They lived a life of complete renunciation, that of solitude. That is the speciality of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or the frequency of 0 hertz. That is the state of God. Now, Adi Shankara did not get into Nirvikalpa Samadhi in his particular lifetime. Why do I tell that? Because Adi Shankara kept on writing the commentaries, composing stotras, writing prakarana granthas, and teaching it to his disciples, and establishing the 4 hermitages, traveling around this land of Bharata. He was very much active. He was very much active, even though he was also self-realized. Adi Shankara was also self-realized, even though he was also liberated. But his liberation is that of Videha Mukti. Means, as long as he was living, he did very great jobs in the spiritual domain itself. But when he left the body, he is liberated. That type of salvation we call it as Videha Mukti. So there are 3 types of salvation called Sadhyo Mukti, Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti. All Sthavara life forms are Sadhyo Mukta. In fact, all other Jangama life forms except the human life forms are Videha Mukta. All other plants and animals are liberated as soon as they die. Whenever they have physical death, they are liberated. They will not have any rebirth again, because they do not know what is life. They do not know what is death also. They really don't know what happens after death. They really don't know what happened before life. They are simply like Udbijja, Svedaja, Andaja, Jarayaja. They are living that way. But Manuja is different. Manuja does not want to die. Manuja may want to live for maybe 100 years, maybe 200 years, maybe 300 years, until children get married, until grandchildren get married, until more money is made, until more assets are made. Who really wants to have a liberation is the question here now. Who really wants to face death is the question here now. Nobody wants to die means they want to be alive. They want to be alive means in what way they want to be alive? They want to be alive in the same way in which they have been living till now. That means, do they really want to liberate? Do they really want to be free? Do they really want to come out of bondage? That is the biggest question each human being should ask himself or herself. Each human being, they should ask themselves whether they want to be liberated. When they don't want to be liberated, again in their memory, they have again a deep desire to come back to human life. So they will be born again as human beings. Let me not tell more about rebirth or reincarnation right now. I'll keep it for the end of the presentation only. I am mentioning all these things only to tell about these 3 types of liberation. So, all the trees and plants, all the Sthavara Jiva, Sthavara type of life form, stationary life form, they are all Sadhyo Mukta. Right now they are liberated. All the Jangama life forms except Manuja, except the human beings, all others are Videha Mukta. As soon as their physical body is dead, they are liberated. But the people who are living like an Avadhuta, real yogi, real rishi, real monk, real sannyasi, true to the word of sannyasa, only those people are Jivan Mukta. Those who live in solitude, those who do not have anything to have with the materialistic lifestyle, they are Jivan Mukta. They are liberated even when they are living. All others are going to have a Krama Mukti. Krama Mukti means maybe in one particular life form, when you really want to liberate, only then you will make an effort to liberate. Otherwise, those who do not put any effort for liberation or mukti, they will never get liberated. They are stuck in this cycle of life and death. If you want to go away from the cycle of life and death, you should realize yourself, right? As long as you do not realize yourself that you are part of divinity, as long as you keep on thinking that you are a human being who want to live again, who want to remain again with the 6 enemies and with the 8 arrogances, how do you think that you will get liberated? How do you think you will purify yourself? How do you think you will become clean? That is what Jesus Christ told in the Bible, no? He told, you're all defiled, he told. Directly he has used this sentence, that people are defiled, people are impure. As long as they remain impure, how can they understand that the kingdom of God is within? The kingdom of God is within. But people are not understanding that because they don't want to understand that. That is always a personal choice. So, now the question is, from 0 to infinity, when we discuss the spectrum, 0 to 32 is the brain frequency. Beyond which, let us say 0 to 20 is the frequency which we are not able to hear. Then what is that frequency? That is the frequency in which brain is operating. And beyond 20 till 20 kilohertz, it is audible frequency where we have ears. Then the other things I have already discussed already. So, right from 0 till infinity, everything is energy. In the increasing form of frequency, everything is energy. What is 0 now? What is the state of 0? State of 0 is the state of non-movement. Because any frequency is what? Any frequency is vibration. Any frequency is basically a wave. Wave is what? Movement. 0 means what? No movement, no vibration. That means what? Stillness. Stillness is what? Purity. Stillness and purity is what? Godliness. Be still and know that I am God. That is told in the Bible as one of the Psalms. So stillness is God. So now we define God in our terminology as 0 hertz. No activity, no movement, no vibration, nothing. Nothing as such. No delta wave, no theta wave, no alpha wave, no beta wave, no gamma wave, no sound wave, no radio wave, no microwave, no infrared wave, no visible light, no ultraviolet, no X-ray, no gamma ray, no cosmic ray. Because all these rays or waves are energies. Energies are movements, energies are vibrations. There are different forms of Shakti. State of 0 means what? State of 0 means, in the yogic parlance, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Vikalpa means choice. In Savikalpa Samadhi, there is a choice either to come to theta or to go to 0. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is no choice. Getting into 0. And if at all that person comes out of this 0, that is because of some other obstacle or disturbance only. Otherwise, he will be there only in 0 state only. Even if he comes back out of 0 state, he will not remain like a normal human being. He will not live a life of normal human being because he is intoxicated with the spirit of divinity. So this state of 0, in the yogic parlance, we call it as the state of Shiva or state of Parabrahman or the state of Paramatma. State of God, state of consciousness. All other frequencies are increasing order frequencies. So again, I repeat, Patanjali is the greatest scientist on this earth. Why? He gave a method to reach God, which no other scientist has understood yet. It is high time that everyone understands that there is a clear-cut method to reach God, to clear-cut method to understand God. There is a clear-cut method to actually have a godly knowledge or the knowledge of self. So, I have been discussing this radio spectrum along with the sound spectrum along with this particular slide only for my audience to understand that from 0 till infinity there is vibration. But at zero, there is no vibration. It is stillness. It is infinity. It is purity. That is the state of God. Omnipresence, omnipotency, that is the state of God. Omniscient, divine presence, that is the state of God. And in whichever name you call it, in whichever language you call it, in whatever wordings you call it, all that means one and the same. Stillness, purity, that's all. So when this is realized by a saint or by a rishi or by a monk or by a yogi, when this is realized, what do they speak later on? They speak only about this. What do they write later on? They write only about this. And that is when they say, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. Everything is nothing but pure consciousness or godliness. Because from the state of zero only, everything else is emanating. So that state of zero is powerful. The state of zero is conscious. The state of zero is knowing what it is doing. Whether you call it as it or he or she, in whichever way, in whichever language you use. So here the Rishi used the term Brahma. What does it mean? Brahmate iti Brahma. The more you understand, the more it expands. The more you try to understand God, the more God will expand. Why? Because God is infinite. You will never be able to understand God completely. But you can understand God who is within you always. Fish may not be able to understand ocean completely, but fish can understand the water within it always. That choice is there with the fish, right? So whatever is the divine presence which is within you, that you can always realize by the practice of spirituality. Whether you practice yoga or whether you practice any other methodology which has been prescribed by other faith systems, that is also fine. All are leading to the same goal, same objective as such. It is not necessary that all of you have to practice only the system prescribed by Patanjali. You can choose any one particular system, but you will have to follow that particular system which you choose. You should not be in a dilemma of choices there. But still, if you practice Ashtanga Yoga, then it is a time-tested, proven methodology to reach God. So that is when Rishi says, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. Brahmati iti Brahma. The one which will keep on expanding when you keep on trying to understand is Brahma. Now, I'll keep discussing some faith systems now. I'll start with the Indian faith system only. Not because you think that I am an Indian. No, not that way. I discussed the Indian faith system in the beginning because that is the most ancient out of all. Out of all the faith systems, Indian faith system is the most ancient. I have already been telling that Rig Veda was written 8,000 years before Christ. That means at that time, no other faith system, spiritual faith system was there on the earth. As Max Muller himself had told, when all over the world, when people were killing each other, living like barbarians, looting each other, only in the country called India, people were sitting below the trees and meditating and trying to find the reasons for life and death. So, I keep discussing this Indian faith system in the beginning only because that particular faith system is the most ancient out of all. The search for the truth of spirituality or the search for the secrets of spirituality began in this particular land of India itself, which was then called as Bharata. Now look at this picture. This picture is a picture of Shiva. So to say, Lord Shiva. And some people call themselves as Shaivas. Some people call themselves as Vaishnavas. Some people call themselves as Brahmanas. Actually, they are following these three faith systems. That is why they call themselves that way. But all are basically one and the same. How they are one and the same, you will gradually know. Let me discuss this picture first. We already know that the state of zero frequency, stillness, purity is the state of God. Now, Shiva is always shown as meditating. In his hand, you can see this Japamala or Akshamala. You can see that using these beads, he is meditating. And you can see that his eyes are not fully open. At the same time, his eyes are not fully closed. What does it mean? If his eyes are fully open, then you should say that he is in the awakened state. His eyes are not fully closed, then if anybody's eyes are fully closed, you will say that they are in the sleeping state. Now this is called Ardha Nimilita Netra. The person who is in the state of Samadhi will be having eyes half open, half closed also. Actually, he will never be seeing anything that way, but he will not be sleeping also. Now in this picture you can see that particular Ardha Nimilita Netra, which means the state of Samadhi is the state of godliness. That is indicated here in this picture. Now why Shiva is having snake in his neck? What are all these waves? All these waves are what? Waves are form of energy, and all these waves are from 0 hertz till infinity. They are movements, and through these movements we have different frequencies where we have different sensory perceptions. Now, how to indicate these waves? What is that which is moving like a wave on this earth? A snake is moving like a wave on this earth. So, God has waves on his body. God is zero, and all other waves are frequencies. All these frequencies are nothing but waves. All these waves are moving in the complete universe. Now in the God's body, let us show a waveform. How to show a waveform? A snake is moving like a wave on earth. Let us show the snake in the God's body. That is the brilliance with which this form of Shiva was visualized. Maybe by Vedavyasa, or maybe the people who were earlier to Vedavyasa. We don't know. We don't know who visualized this particular form. This form was visualized only so that the spiritual truths can be easily described, explained, discussed. It doesn't mean that God is in this form. It doesn't mean. This particular image is for visualizing God and understanding the secrets of spirituality. So I have told you about Ardha Nimilita Netra. I have told you about Japamala. I have told you about the snake. Now why a poisonous snake? You should understand yourself. All these energies are what? Energies are bindings. All these bindings are Maya. And this Maya is against the state of liberation, right? Maya does not want anybody to be free or anybody to be liberated, right? Now that is like a poison only. So a poisonous snake only is being tamed by whom? It is being tamed by the Lord himself. The Lord is not subjected to its poison. Lord has kept this poison at his neck itself. So that way he has conquered the effects of poison. Godliness is state of liberation itself, state of freeness itself, state of purity itself. That is why a poisonous snake itself is chosen here. And why he is half naked? Why he is not wearing clothes? Again, the person who is in the state of Samadhi, will he have any longing towards his body? Will he be worrying about the clothes which he is wearing? Sadashiva Brahmendra, was he worried about his nakedness? For that matter, I should mention one more great lady who was there in the state of Karnataka earlier. Her name was Mahadevi Akka. She was also called as Akka Mahadevi. She completely became naked in front of a king. The king wanted her body's experience. Now, this lady completely became naked in front of every public people. And she did not have a bodily feeling at that time at all. Now, the picture of Shiva is naked, so to say, because there is no bodily feeling at all. Bodily feeling is there only when you wake up. That is in the state of beta waves, not at zero frequency. So, this Shiva is always shown as wearing only Charma Ambara. Charma Ambara Dhari means he is wearing a skin as his cloth. Is it not so with all of us? We are all wearing basically skin as our cloth. The other clothes which we wear is because of social conditioning. But when a child is born from the mother's womb, what is its basic cloth? The cloth is the skin itself. That's why he is called as Charma Ambara Dhari. And why his body is dark in color? Why his body is like a cloud's color? It is almost bluish in color. They say in the story that when that poison was drunk, his body turned into pale. That is part of the story. What is reality? I had mentioned earlier that universe is basically dark. The God's form, if you have to visualize, when there was no light emerged, you should visualize that what? Visualize as complete darkness, complete emptiness, no other energies. Now Shiva is shown in dark color. Krishna is shown in dark color. What for? To indicate this only. To indicate that basically God is colorless. We cannot judge God as one color or one form because God is not matter. God is not energy. God is source of both. They say that one picture is equivalent to 1000 words. Now you should understand. Just understand all the secrets that are shown in this picture. You will understand everything else. Lobsam Rangpa also says that one experience is equivalent to 1000 pictures. You should have a real spiritual experience. That spiritual experience is equivalent to 1000 pictures and one picture is equal to 1000 words. I have told about snake. I have told about Japamala. I have told about body's color. I have told about the half-closed eyes. And I have told about his cloth. Now let me come to Ganga at the top. And let me come to crescent moon. Let me talk about Ganga at the top. Whenever a person or a yogi or a rishi, when they get into Savikalpa Samadhi, later on into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the body is not going to die and the person is not going to live. It's a very strange state as Adi Shankara has told. So, the body is not going to die because body is not getting aged. Body is not having any disease. So, body is not going to die. At the same time, the person is not going to live. He is not coming to awakened state. Now, body wants to live. In what way body will live? When the body wants to live, body will produce some special hormones in the brain. There's a special gland called pineal gland inside the brain. In most of the people, the pineal gland is dormant, means it is not working. It was working earlier with the child. That is why many times children, when they are infants, they smile a lot. When they smile a lot, why they smile a lot? They smile a lot because whenever this pineal gland secretes some special hormones, then they will get some, the children will get into some ecstatic state and they smile a lot without their own knowledge. Even when a yogi gets into this particular state, the dormant gland called pineal gland will be awakened. Especially, this gland will be awakened with some classical singers or with people who do work with a lot of passion, and the people who are highly committed or spiritual, or some classical artists, dancers who perform with a lot of emotion and feeling. With most of these people, the pineal gland is awakened. Whenever you have one goosebump, then understand that slightly pineal gland is awakened. Otherwise, you will never have a goosebump. When do we have a goosebump or romanchana? Whenever you are ecstatically happy or suddenly something makes you feel go into a divine state. That is when people get goosebumps or romanchana. That is a signal that the pineal gland is being awakened. When the pineal gland is awakened in the normal situation, it is going to secrete two normal hormones called melatonin and serotonin. But when the person is in samadhi, pineal gland is going to secrete many more hormones for the survival of the body. Those hormones, a collection of hormones, is going to keep the body alive. Then such hormone is called as amrita. Amrita means non-dying, because mrita means died. Mrita means dead. Amrita means non-dead. As long as the pineal gland keeps on secreting these hormones, body will never be dead. That is why this is called as amrita. That is what is indicated in the picture as Ganga. In his Sahasrara Chakra, there is Ganga. At the top of his head, he has this Ganga. What does it mean? That in the brain at the top, there is this pineal gland. Not exactly at the top. Somewhere inside the brain, there is this pineal gland. And when the pineal gland gets awakened, it is going to secrete special hormones which will keep the body alive. That is indicated by Ganga. Why half moon? What is the meaning of full moon? Full moon means mind is fully working. I had told you already that Chandrama Manaso Jataha is mentioned in the Purusha Suktam. Moon and the mind have direct relationships. That is part of Vedic astrology. As far as the moon's movement is concerned, similarly human mind will be influenced by the moon's movement. Now, when the mind itself is nullified, what does it mean? Mind is not working. What does it mean? Mind is controlled. That is the state of samadhi. That is what is a crescent moon. The moon is in its minimum size. But still moon is there. What does it mean? Moon is still there means mind is still there. Mind is not dead. Mind is still there. Body is not dead. Body is still there. Anytime body and mind can come back to their normal form if the yogi wishes. That is why small moon shape is shown. Now what is the third eye? The third eye indicates spiritual realization, spiritual eye, inner vision. There is a chakra called Ajna Chakra. When the Kundalini reaches up to Ajna Chakra, without any external means, you will realize your own divinity, your own pure spiritual existence. That itself is self-realization. So then you will have an inner vision. That inner vision is this inner vision. Inner vision does not mean you have an eye there. It simply means that you can have a vision of the universe, just like God is watching the universe without the eyes. That is indicated as Shiva's third eye. And what is this Trishula? Trishula having three forks there. What does it mean? The three nadis, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. It also means three states, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. It also means three qualities, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. In whichever way you take it. You conquer the three qualities, you conquer the three states, you conquer the three nadis. Let the Kundalini reach from Mooladhara till Sahasrara through the Sushumna nadi. But Shiva is having Trishula. Shiva's son Subramanya is having only one Shula. I will tell about it later on when I discuss Subramanya. Shiva is having three Shula. What does it mean? Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. Three nadis are there. What is meant by Ida, Pingala? I am going to discuss when I start the practical classes where we have a Nadi Shuddhi Pranayama. Let me not discuss it now. All the practical related things let me discuss later on only. But right now you understand that the Trishula basically means three nadis, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. The feminine aspect, the masculine aspect and the divine aspect. That is called Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. Now let me come to the Damaru there. He has one small drum or a musical instrument which is covered by leather now. Why this particular musical instrument is there with the form of Shiva? Now, we have already seen the spectrum from 0 till infinity. 0 till 20. What is there? Frequency before sound. We call it as infrasound. From 20 to 20 kilohertz, what is there? We have sound. Now, from 20 to 20 kilohertz, whatever sound is there, what is basically that sound? What is basically that sound? That sound is produced by nature itself, right? There are two types of sounds in nature. One is the sound which is produced when two objects are struck. Other one is a sound which is produced when no objects are struck. The sound which is produced by friction is called ahata nada. The sound which is produced by non-friction is called anahata nada. Right now I am speaking, you are listening. This particular sound which is coming out of my throat is called ahata nada, because it's a friction that is happening at my vocal cords. Now you may think all sounds are like that only, no? You may think that every sound that is produced here is basically ahata type only, right? Because sound is produced by friction only, right? Yes. When the living beings produce such sounds, or when nature produces such sounds, maybe thunder, maybe water falling, all those sounds are basically ahata sounds. There is a friction happening because of which sound is produced. But there are sounds which are there in nature which are not heard directly by your ears. But there are those sounds. Those sounds are called anahata nada. Now, when this picture shows this musical instrument, that is the meaning of indicating anahata nada, or the sound that is being produced by God himself in nature. Now the question may arise whether God produces such sounds in nature directly. Yes. What about the sound which is below 20 hertz? You may say elephants are using that sound. Yes, elephants are using that sound when they vibrate their vocal cords. But there are sounds in nature which are below 20 hertz. And there is a practice of Nadanusandhana Yoga, of listening to such sounds only. There is a Upanishad written as Nadavindu Upanishad, which discusses these sounds only. Now, people may not understand these sounds until they stop making their own sounds, right? People are busy making their own sounds always. When they are busy making their own sounds always, how will they understand those sounds which are directly produced by God himself? In the Bible, Jesus Christ told what? He told, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. For that word, Christians use a symbol called Amen, and Muslims use a symbol called Amin. Hindus use a symbol called Om. and Buddhists use a symbol called hum. All are one and the same. A symbol is being used, and that symbol is used to indicate the sound produced by God Himself as His vibrations or as His Adi Shakti. That is why in the Indian philosophy, almost all deities will have one or the other musical instrument. Shiva is having this damaru, Vishnu is going to have a conch, Krishna is going to have a flute, Saraswati is going to have a veena. You can see many such musical instruments with all these deities, and all these images are indicating this anahata sound itself, or the sound produced by God. Now, finally, why this ice mountain? Ice mountain basically means in ice, if something is there, it will never die. If you keep anything in the middle of the ice, it will never die, it will never live also. Only when it comes out of ice, when it comes to normal temperature, you are going to consume it as a food. As long as it is inside the ice, it is not dead also, it is not alive also. Same way the person who is in samadhi is not dead also, not alive also. That is why Shiva is always shown as sitting in a mountain of ice. But this does not mean that whatever Kailasa is, people where they believe is where Shiva is. They are mistaken that way. The true meaning of Kailasa is Kaihi Lasaha in Sanskrit. Kaihi means from whom, Lasaha means dancing. Who is dancing in this universe? God is dancing in the universe with all these frequency ranges. And whole universe is Shiva's Tandava Nritya. Read the book called Tao of Physics, written by Fritjof Capra, where in one particular chapter he discusses only the Hindu faith system, and he depicts the picture of Nataraja. He discusses the image of Nataraja in that particular book, and he says whole universe is cosmic dance of God or cosmic dance of Shiva. It does not mean that on the surface of earth, in one particular place right now where Chinese have occupied it, don't think that Shiva is there in that particular mountain. And don't have a blind faith that only he is there and Chinese are occupying. Don't have such logic at all. Shiva is whole universe, and whole universe is his cosmic dance. Okay, it is now 9 o'clock. With this particular images discussion, I am bringing today's session to an end. See you tomorrow, and then I will discuss more things. There is a question here. Question is, heartbeat is ahata or anahata? Heartbeat is ahata, because heartbeat is friction only. The valves in the heart are beating, right? Opening and closing. That is because of the muscular pumping, right? And that signal is coming from the brain only, right? Breathing along with the functionality of the brain is keeping the heart beating. That is ahata only. Wherever there is friction, wherever there is movement of objects, all that is ahata only. You will not understand anahata nada unless you practice nadanusandhana yoga or unless you study Nadavindu Upanishad. But I am going to discuss those things only in the practical classes, not now. Now it is only for theoretical discussion. So with this, let me conclude today's session. See you tomorrow. Until then, take care and goodbye.